Hey everybody, I'm Scott Wikle. You are listening to the original My Kind of Country right here on mkocradio.com. This is our very special tribute show to the one and only Conway Twitty. Tomorrow would have been his 84th birthday, believe it or not, folks, September the 1st, 1933. And we lost the best friend a song ever had on June the 5th of 1993. I just can't believe it's been that long. He's one of my very favorite singers in the world, and folks that listen to my show know that because I play so much of his music. And tonight it is a true honor for me to be able to be the radio debut for a brand new Conway Twitty album. Yes, that's right, folks, a brand new album that has never been released, and you're going to hear it first right here tonight on My Kind of Country. And to help us talk about this and present these songs to you, I have his wonderful daughter, and you have heard her on Don't Cry, Joanie. I know you know who I'm talking about. This is Joni Lee Twitty. Joanie, hello, darling.
All right, Scott. Hello, darling. It's so nice to be here with all your listeners. I'm just thrilled to be here to celebrate our dad's birthday, and what a special gift that we've been able to take this great album and make it shine even a little bit brighter and have it out there available for everyone. I mean, gosh, what a gift this has been to us to find something like this out there that we didn't even know existed. And we're just so honored to be a part of it. And we appreciate you helping us celebrate our dad's birthday and showcasing this great album called Timeless.
Well, I wouldn't have it any other way, and I've had a chance to listen to the album entirely several times, and I've got to tell you, it sounds absolutely pristine, and folks are going to absolutely love the album without a doubt, and you're going to hear some of it here today on the show, and it's called Conway Twitty Timeless, and you can still pre-order it at conwaytwitty.com and get the special price if you go to the website. And then Joanie, it's going to be released in October officially, right?
Well, it is. The official release date for everyone else is in October 6th. But for anyone who goes and orders on conwaytwitty.com, they're going to be mailing it September 1st. So you will be getting it right away, and you'll be the first people in the world to get a copy. And it's just a real honor that we're able to do this, for the people that come and visit our website. And we're happy to give it to our Facebook friends and to all those out there that come to our website and visit us, and they'll be able to get it early, and that's a real treat to get a copy of this album because it is really, really special.
Well, what a great way to celebrate Conway's birthday, and there's 14 songs on here, and a lot of these songs were his #1 hits, and there's a few little surprises on there, and we're going to present those to you today, and we're going to play a whole bunch of them on the show and talk to Joanie and hear the story of how this wonderful album came to be. Joanie, first of all, tell me how you discovered these songs.
I'll be happy to, Scott. There's a lady here in Nashville that I've known for several years, not well, but I've known her. Her name is Precious Harris, and she contacted me back a couple years ago, and she kept telling me that she had gone into partners with a man up in New York that owned these masters, and we just really never moved forward with it, and she finally was very persistent, and I finally said, well, yeah, let me see if I can get a copy of it, because obviously we wouldn't want to put anything out there that wasn't in the best light of Dad. You never know what someone has in their possession. And she said, I'll be glad to have Tom, who's the owner of the label, send you a copy. He's the one that owns the masters. And so he did send me a copy, and as soon as I heard it, I said, oh, my gosh, this is gold. I mean, this is just something wonderful. And they explained to me that this was done for the Navy Hoedown show, which was done for the Armed Forces back in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. And what the artist did back then, and I remember Dad doing this, but they went into the studio and they took in his case, he took his own band, the Twitty Birds, and they went in and they recorded the songs, and they just did like a one-time take. It wasn't like they spent hours perfecting the vocals or the music or anything. They just played it like they would be playing it live. And once they got their songs that they selected completed, then they took it to another phase where they added the disc jockey involved. And in Dad's case, it was Hal Durham from WSM, and they did the little interviews in between each song, and they took the entire show that had been pieced together and played it for the armed forces, and then it became a syndicated radio show and played throughout the country. So, I didn't even know these things still existed. But when Tom told me his plan he said, I realize I cannot do this without your family because we have the intellectual property rights. And he said, but I really want to do something like this. And I said, well, if you're coming to town, let's set up a meeting. So he did. He came to Nashville. And we sat down at a meeting, and he told me his plan was to bring in a producer and to update the already existing tracks, which we couldn't touch what was already recorded because it was mixed down, and it, what was there and couldn't be changed or edited in any way. So I said, Tom, you don't have to look any further because you've got me. I spent countless hours in the studio with my dad, and I said, and you may not be aware, but I had a huge hit record with him. I toured with him for years, and, I just, there's nobody that knows Conway's music better than I do as far as studio work. And then I've got my husband, John Wesley Riles, who was an artist for many years and now is one of the top background singers in Nashville. And he's had over 50 years experience in the studio as well. So he and I together can go in and do this. We can get some of our friends who are some of the A-listed musicians in town that will come in as favors and do this for next to nothing just to be a part of the project. And he said, okay, I love the idea. So he gave us the opportunity to go in and do the updated version, and we set up the studio time and got one of our dear friends, Mark Capps, who his father played acoustic guitar on many of my dad's sessions, especially in the earlier years. Jimmy Capps is his name. And so Mark, who is also a Grammy-winning producer, came in as an engineer for us and was a part of this as well. And then we had a piano player, Ron Oates is his name, and he came in. He's played with on sessions like for Ray Charles, Gladys Knight, Dolly Parton. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And then Kevin Williams played acoustic guitar, and he is with the Gaither vocal band, which is, monstrous.
Yeah.
And he's played with many, many country acts on their records as well. And then we had my brother-in-law, Kathy's husband, Tony, who hasn't had the studio experience, but we wanted him to feel like a part of the process as well. So we got him to come in because he's a good musician, and we had him come in and do a little acoustic work too on two of the songs. And so anyway, and then of course John did all the background vocals, and we went in and took an existing great piece of work and made it even greater. And by the time we got through, we just were beaming with pride because it just turned out so wonderful. And it sounds like it was recorded yesterday. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And when were these actually recorded, Joni?
The original recording was done at Scotty Moore's studio. He was, worked for Elvis, and he had a studio down on Music Row area. And the update version, you're going to laugh, but the background vocals were done here in our house.
Wow.
Yeah, my husband stood in the hallway right outside our bedroom, and we were in the dining room with all the board and, all the things that we needed on the other end of it. And we had him singing back there.
That's great.
And then Tony, Kathy's husband, actually did his guitar part here at the house. But the other musicians, we went to Skaggs' place, which is Ricky Skaggs' studio here in Hendersonville. Mm-hmm. And we recorded the rest of it there. So you just never know where things are going to come from now.
and then the original tracks were recorded in 1972, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. And it was Dad and his band, the Twitty Birds, and they just did a phenomenal job. And, you know, everybody on that is gone now. And it's just unbelievable to have that gift, you know, from that time period, and to hear all them together playing again. You know, it's just really special for us. And anybody who loved Conway and her dad and went to his shows, they were used to seeing Conway and the Twitty Birds. You know, that was a big part of the show too. They were just a part of it. Yeah.
Well, it's a great sound when you you know, normally studio musicians play on the records, and then touring musicians go out on the road, and having the road band play on these songs, it kind of presents more of what it would have been like to hear Conway doing these live at that time.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, it was a live performance because, like I said, even though it was in a studio, it was just like they did it live. I mean, it sounded exactly how Dad did things in person. And, you know, Scott, the thing about it is Dad was better live even than he was on record, and he was great on record. But after artists settle in, after they've recorded a song and they've lived with it for a little while and worked with it and just got, you know, it gets better with age. It's kind of like a fine wine, you know. They live with it and sit with it a while, and they learn to really feel it even deeper than they did when they recorded it. And so when people hear these songs, they think, well, I've already bought those songs. Well, you hadn't heard them like this.
You haven't heard them like this. I agree.
You know, they just really, really are special. You know, the way he sang them, he just had so much more emotion even than the original records, in my opinion.
Well, I want to stop and play a few songs from this album, and the lead-off cut on this album is a song that was originally recorded as an instrumental. It was done by Floyd Kramer, and Conway wrote words to this and recorded it. And it's interesting, the time that these recordings were originally done was right at the time that this was the #1 song for Conway, and it's
it's my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, Last Date, #1. It was his 7th #1 single, solo single, May the 27th of 1972, and it was right when these recordings were done. So it's really cool to hear this.
Oh yeah.
And you know, Conway had a really distinct style on stage, and he could really push a line of a song, and he would almost break meter, and he'd come right back in at the last second, you know, and it's so prevalent on these recordings, and it's just amazing to hear what he's done here.
That's because lyrics were so important to him, and he never wanted to throw a word away. He wanted it to have, so if it took breaking a little bit of meter to emphasize something, that's how you get to people's hearts, you know, is through the song. And he felt like he was just a vessel to deliver the message, and it's that emotion that delivers the song. And sometimes it's not perfection, but man, does the message get through.
Absolutely. Well, I want to play that one, and he's got a great version of Dim Lights, Thick Smoke, and Loud Music, which was obviously a hit for Joe and Rosalie Maphis, among others, and Conway himself had it on an album in 1968. It was actually the flip side of a single called The Image of Me, and Image of Me, I believe, was Conway's first big hit in the country field. Is that right?
It was. It wasn't a #1 record, but it was the first one in the top 10. You know, it was such a coveted group, the country music field, and they were very leery. They were over there watching this rock and roller coming into their world, and that was the first record that they said, okay, this guy he's the real thing.
Real deal.
And they let him in the door and opened their hearts to him and let him stay for many, many, many years.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and play these for you, folks. I want you to listen very closely to these recordings. This is the first time you're going to hear these, and you're going to love it. Here's Last Date, Dim Lights, Thick Smoke, and Loud Music, and The Image of Me from the brand new album Conway Twitty Timeless, and you can get this at conwaytwitty.com. Listen to this, folks, and we'll be back to talk with Joni in just a few minutes. All right, that is brand new music from Conway Twitty. The album is called Timeless. You can get it at conwaytwitty.com, and I told you you were just going to flip when you heard these recordings. And I've got his daughter Joni with me today. We're talking about this fantastic new release. Joni, as I listen to The Image of Me, at the very end, you've got to kind of turn up your volume a little bit, but you hear somebody say, "One more time, Hargis."
That's Pork Chop, Dad's drummer.
I figured.
Yes, I said, well, yeah, he was mouthy, and it was at the, it was on tape, and there was no way to edit it out because it was in the ringing of the last note. We tried in the mix, and there was no way. But you know what? That's what gives it character. That's what lets you know it's real. And that was Pork Chop, and actually, that was one other musician that I didn't mention earlier that did play on it. Hargis Pig Robinson. Pig is what everybody called him. He was the piano player that was huge as far as musicians in town, you know, playing on everybody's records, and they had him come in for that one that one song, and he was the only additional musician that was added to the. You know, I forgot to mention, too, Dad played the guitar.
Yeah.
He was the one playing guitar on everything. But Pig Robbins did come in on that one song and did a great job, of course. He always did a great job. But
yeah, still does. Pig Robbins is still a wonderful player. I got to meet him just a couple months ago, and he's still doing sessions. And you talk about a walking, talking piece of country music history. That man has played on so many great records, including so many of Conway's over the years. So it was good to hear him on this album. But I thought I'm glad you didn't edit that out because I thought that was really cool.
Well, like I say, it made it real. You know, it keeps it real.
Absolutely. You know, we were talking a little bit, just touched on it a little bit earlier. You know, your dad was a major rock and roll star before he became a major country western star, and he's still, you know, had some roots planted in rock and roll, and there's a couple songs on this album that certainly make that shine through, and one of them is the CCR song "Proud Mary."
Yes. Oh, we were so excited when we heard him put that on his album. Of course, you know, we were kids at that age, and I'm older than you, Scott, but Creedence Clearwater was really big when Dad recorded this song, and he did a countryer version than theirs, and it was just like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know, it was really neat, but it was wonderful. I mean, Dad had a huge rock and roll career. He sold over 16 million records, and that was a lot back then. It's not like today. You know, even in today's time, that's a lot. But he did. He walked away from a very successful, very big rock and roll career, but he knew where his heart wanted to be, and he wanted to wait until he felt like he was mature enough and could do justice to the songs that he would be singing about in country music. And, you know, it's true. What he would do is go record rock albums during the day, and at night, late at night, he and Harlan Howard, who is a huge songwriter, I'm sure you know Harlan, they would go over into the studio late at night, and Dad would say, let me put down these country songs that I keep writing, and he was, you know, had been writing these songs, and Dad would put them down, and Harlan said, man, you ought to be a country singer. And Dad said, that's what I want to be. And this is a really cool story. Dad was on a tour, you know, during the rock days, and he was in a motel somewhere, don't even know where he was, but the phone rang in his room one day, you know, before he was going to the venue where he was playing. And he picked up the phone, and this voice on the other end said, Conway? And he said, yeah. He said, this is Ray Price. And Dad said, yeah, right. I mean, he said, no way. Why would Ray Price be calling me at a motel? And he said, no, really, this is Ray Price, and I want to play my next single for you. And all of a sudden he hears Ray Price's voice coming through the other end singing a song he had written called Walk Me to the Door.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad liked to hit the ground at that point. It really was Ray Price, and he was so thrilled. And Harlan Howard had pitched one of those songs during those late night sessions when they'd go over and put demos of songs Daddy was writing, and he pitched one of them to Ray Price, and it was Ray's next single. And a great song called Walk to the Door.
That's a great thing. I remember hearing Conway was like a demo version of that, and then Conway released it on an album a few years after that too.
Yeah, he did. He sure did.
He
did a great job on it.
I had Justin Trevino on my show recently, and he just put an album out as a tribute to Ray Price, and that song is on there. And we were talking about how cool, and it's a great shuffle song, and it's a classic. And Conway kind of, he snuck some of the rock and roll stuff. He'd do a few cuts on the albums. I know Proud Mary was on the I Love You More Today album in '69, and Working Girl. That's kind of a rocker too. That was from '67 originally.
That soulful Conway coming out through that, yeah.
Absolutely. And Honky Tonk Man. That was a Johnny Horton Tillman Franks song. He did a great version of this on this album.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, it was fun. They're not typical Conway Twitty songs as far as, what women want to hear and that, those love songs. But they're fun, and everybody loves to move to it, do a little dancing.
Absolutely. Well, and Conway certainly tipped his hat to Ray Price, too, because you've got a great cut on Crazy Arms here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He loved Ray Price. Adored him.
Absolutely. Well, let's take another break, and we're going to play those songs for you. Proud Mary, Working Girl, Honky Tonk Man, and then I'm going to play Crazy Arms, too. These are all off of the brand new album called Timeless, Conway Twitty. This is brand new, never been released, and you're hearing it for the first time here on My Kind of Country. And, folks, please go to conwaytwitty.com, and you can get this fabulous CD. We're going to come back and talk to Joni some more about this great album. Stay with us as we continue with our very special tribute to Conway Twitty. All right, that is brand new music from Conway Twitty, and you're hearing it first right here on My Kind of Country. The album is called Timeless, and you can order your copy right from conwaytwitty.com. And I'm very happy to have Joni Twitty here with us tonight talking about this fabulous release. And Joni, tell me a little more about your husband singing the harmonies on this album, and give me a little bit of what it was like to hear your dad's voice coming out of these studio speakers again.
Oh, gosh, it was just such a thrill. I mean, first of all, to hear Dad's voice coming from anywhere is just, oh, my gosh, it just warms my heart. It took me years, though, Scott, before I could listen to his music. You would think that would bring you comfort, but it was so painful for me to listen to. And, that's my daddy. It's not just somebody's favorite singer. It was my dad, so it was way more personal. But finally, probably in about 2006, 2007, somewhere in there, I finally got over it, and I got to the point that I could listen again and enjoy his music. But to put those earphones on and hear that great voice coming through, oh my gosh, what a great voice to come through a set of earphones. It's just, what a singer. He just thing like that. I mean, you know what? As a previous entertainer myself, I realize now what he did. As a kid growing up, I took all that for granted. I didn't pay that much attention. I mean, I knew people adored him, but I didn't really think that much about it. But boy, when I started touring with him, I saw him from a whole different perspective, and it just, opened my eyes to what he really did and how great of a talent he truly was. But anyway, it was special to hear his voice coming through those earphones. And then the opportunity from my husband, who I adore and love his singing as well, to get the chance to go in and sing backgrounds. Big Joe Lewis was the bass player in Dad's band, And on some of the songs, not every song, but some of the songs, he did like a single part of harmony. And John would go in and do the other part above him. And John did all the oohs. And some songs he did all the harmonies on. And, you know, so it made it really, really special for me to be able to hear the two men I love dearly in live.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Singing together. I mean, what a treasure.
Talk about a full circle.
What a treasure.
Yeah. You know, it's a hard thing to sing harmony with Conway Twitty. His songs are so challenging as a vocalist. He starts out so low, and the songs just build. And I tell you, you've got to be right there to be able to keep up with him. And then when you got to get on top of that and put a harmony part, I mean, I give it up to Big Joe, man.
Well, John went above Big Joe, so
yeah.
Except on Crazy Arms, he went below because it felt better for that song. But yeah, John's a singing dude. He can get up there and make it happen. So
well, he sure is.
I knew if anybody could do it, he was the guy who could make it happen, and he did. He did a great job, and he just made it come to life. I mean, his backgrounds just added that much more sparkle, to this great album.
Well, we play a lot of John's music on our show, and I hope maybe on a future show, if we can talk him into it, I'd love to have him on and talk about his music,
Good
too.
luck with that. I've begged him to do interviews with me, and I can't get him to do it.
Well, you tell him we're playing his music anyway. How's that?
Yeah.
Well, talking about these wonderful harmonies, we're kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of some of these great songs now, but some of the soaring harmonies, I Love You More Today. That, man, I'll tell you what, that's...
Oh, yeah.
1969, that was a #1 song, and that was the title song of the album, and this version is just absolutely stellar.
Yes, I think so too. He did a great job, and of course, Dad, every time he opens his mouth, he kills it. So.
Yeah. Tell me about Next in Line.
Yeah, that was Dad's very first #1 record, and it started a string of 55 #1 records, and it started it off. It really gave Dad a real solid foothold in country music, and it's just one of those classic great country songs. It's a lot different than what plays today, obviously, and kids today might not understand that, but all those things, they were little chapters out of people's lives, not necessarily the person singing it, but they were like little mini soap operas or little mini movies that you could see playing out in your mind, and that's why the singer who would sing the songs like that, they would sing it with so much emotion because they could feel the pain that person might be feeling, and the experience they must be going through, and they may have even lived something similar to that. But it's a great song, and I think Dad did a great job on it, and I think everybody, just added so much to it from the existing recording. We're just real proud of how it turned out.
Well, and I don't say this lightly, because the original recordings that Conway did on these songs are just, they're country music gold. But I've got to tell you, as I listen to this album, I would take these versions over the originals any day.
I know, and I didn't think I could say that. Because I love the original recordings, but like I was saying earlier, when they live with the song for a little while and do them live night after night, and I've done it myself. I was a recording artist too, so I understand, why I'm saying what I'm saying, and it's the truth. Is after you've lived with it and you settle into it, you just get more relaxed with it, and you give it. It's more of a feel thing than a technical thing. And, of course, Dad, he had it to perfection before, but after he lived with it a minute, it really got great. And my favorite way to ever hear Dad sing was just sitting around the house with a guitar. Oh, my gosh. Now, that's when he just killed me. I mean, the little things in his voice, that's what I used to tell him. I said, Dad, it's those little nuances, those little tiny things that you do with words that just milk the words and make people feel. You reach out, he could take an audience, and there's not many people that can do this, Scott. I've been to many concerts, with him and with other people and touring on my own, and you don't see many people that can do that. There's a handful of artists that can, but I've seen him take that building full of, warring people and put them in the palm of his hand.
Oh, yeah.
And he did not let them go until that last note rang out. And, they would walk out of there mesmerized because he knew how to capture their soul, and he made them feel like he was singing directly into their heart, and they felt it.
Yeah.
And he had that magic. And like I say, there aren't many who have that capability. I certainly didn't. I did a good little show and people enjoyed it and all that, but I didn't have that kind of magic. That is rare. And to be able to witness that and have a front row seat basically in life to that kind of performer and watch it happen night after night after night. And, what a blessing.
Well, I was very blessed. I got to see Conway 6 times, and you're absolutely right. And this is, this isn't lip service. It's when I saw him the first time. I had no words. The concert was done, and I sat there. I had to process what I'd just seen.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never
and
seen.
It was a journey. It was a journey. He started out powerful by coming out. That people see us everywhere, and then he comes out and it's like boom, right off the bat, he clobbers you over the head, and then he comes out and says, "Hello, darling," and the place explodes, and you think, oh my gosh, how much bigger can this get? And then it just starts this gradual building process from there and goes to the end, and then you're so high up and floating in the clouds with him that you don't even know what's going on because it's an experience more than a concert.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate you saying that because I know as his child, I'm obviously a little biased.
Well, sure, but it's true. And anybody that's seen Conway will be sitting there nodding their heads right now as they're listening to this show.
Yeah.
I have never in my life seen someone come out on a stage and put more power in their voice and into the songs that they sang. And these are songs that he sang thousands and thousands of times, but I'll tell you, when you heard him live, it was like he was doing that song for the first time, and he had something to tell you, man, and you were going to hear it. You were
going to hear it. He was going to make you a believer, and you were going to get the message. And you did, and you walked out of there, and you got it. And, here's an example. The song, You've Never Been This Far Before, a lot of disc jockeys back in that day. I was in high school when this came out, and they wouldn't play the record. They were banning it. They said, that's dirty. I'm not playing that song. And Daddy said, that's not a dirty song. It wasn't intended to be dirty. It's a love song. And any place on a married woman's forbidden. And it's not meant to, only people with that kind of mindset would take it to that place. But the women out there that I wrote this for, they'll understand. Mm-hmm. And they did. And made it one of his biggest records ever. They understood the purity and the innocence that it came from. And it's true, he didn't intend it dirty. My dad didn't have a dirty-minded bone in his body. He just didn't. And but that thing between him and his listener, and it wasn't all just women. Believe me, there was a lot of men out there that were fans too. But most messages were to women, and but the men loved it because Daddy could teach them to say the things they wanted to learn to say to their women, So there was something in it for everybody. But
your dad was, they kind of say, he sings to the ladies, and I think in a big way he did. But
yes.
as a male listener, I caught a lot of the other side of that, and what I mean by that is the meaning in the songs, like you just said. there was such a message there for both sides, and I was up there cheering just right along with the ladies on those songs. I don't care, what
Love
I
it.
mean.
Oh, that's great, Scott. I love it.
Well, of the 55 number ones, there are quite a few number one songs on this album, Conway Twitty Timeless, and I'm going to play a little block of those right now, ones we just talked about, and then we'll come back and talk to Joni some more about the rest of the songs on here, including, of course, Hello, Darling. I Love You More Today, Next in Line, How Much More Can She Stand, and those are all smash number one songs.
Oh, how much more can she stand?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. And that's another one of those harmony songs, it just soars. If You Were Mine to Lose, Conway, I know, recorded this in '66. It was on the Look Into My Teardrops album.
Yes.
And he recorded it again on the Still in Your Dreams album in '88. And I have to think that this must have been a real favorite of his, even though it wasn't a chart record for him.
It was. Well, obviously, he loved the song. He did it in his show for years. It was always a part of his show, and it was the song that gave him his road into country music. I'm telling you, this was what opened country music radio's eyes to letting them know he was real, and this was the real deal. And it remained one of the favorites of the crowds. They loved the song as if it was one of his big hits, and it was never a number one record, even though it made the top 10, I think. I don't remember exactly where it went on the charts, but it did not make it to number one. Next in Line was the first number one record, and but it remained one of the crowd favorites in his shows. So he put it back in the album years and years later, and re-recorded it, and obviously it was something real special to him, and I'm sure that's why, is because it was the first song to give him his big country break that he always dreamed of.
Well, we were talking about how he could push the meter right to the edge in a phrase and a line in the song. And when you listen to this particular version, you hear that, and I keep going, my gosh, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it, and he pulls it right back in.
That's right. That's right.
Well, take a listen to this one, folks. If You Were Mine to Lose, and then I'm going to play these other great songs, and having a great time just doing a feature on this brand new album, Conway Twitty Timeless. It's available at conwaytwitty.com, and we're talking to Joni Twitty, and it's such a pleasure. And stay with us. We'll be right back, folks. All right, that is Country Music Gold, Conway Twitty Timeless, the brand new album. ConwayTwitty.com is the place to go to get it, and if you haven't been convinced before, you're going to be convinced here in a couple minutes. Joni Twitty is with us, and we're talking about this landmark release and how cool it is to have brand new Conway Twitty music. It's his 84th birthday, and my gosh, I can't believe that. But it's so cool to have new music to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. Growing up and when we got older, it was so hard to know what to get him. He went through a phase where he liked members-only jackets, so we'd rush down and get that. And then he went through, I liked the Fruit of the Month Club, so we'd order that and get him that for his birthday. He was so hard to buy for. He didn't need much. He didn't like fancy things. He didn't want expensive gifts. And you wanted to get him something special, not just a picture frame or something. But he didn't need anything. If he needed it, he had it. And then when we moved into Twitty City, he wanted trees, so we would plant a tree, and now Twitty City is just beautiful with trees. But you know what? I think this is probably one of the most special birthday gifts we could give him, and he's not here on Earth to celebrate it with us, but I know where he is, he knows it's happening, and what a great gift to be able to do this for him on his 84th birthday, and we want to thank all the folks out there for helping us celebrate this special day with us, and hope they enjoy the album, because it sure is a labor of love.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to give a nod to Country Rewind Records. You can visit their website at Country Rewind. Boy, that's hard to say. CountryRewind.com.
Yeah. Oh, Tom has been the greatest man. He's become a dear friend of mine. And I tell you what, everything I've asked for, he's let me be very hands-on involved. And of course, my family. I don't mean to exclude my siblings, but between Kathy, Michael, Jimmy, and I'm the one who's worked the most on the album. But we're all partners in this. But this is kind of my forte, and we just appreciate him so much. Anything we've asked for, he's given us, and bent over backwards to make this special. And he's just as excited as we are, and he's a great fella. And so anyway, we want to thank Tom for believing in us and giving us the chance to be a part of the production.
Well, visit their website, countryrewind.com. They've got some other great projects they've done. There's a great album on Farron Young, Connie Smith, Mickey Gilley, Waylon Jennings, and they'll be working on more. And I applaud them for keeping this music alive and getting these recordings that would have been lost to time back out there.
That's right. That's right. And the fact that they kept these things in pristine condition.
Oh yeah.
And it's amazing. You think about how many years old from 1972 to. Well, last year when we got the actual, tape, the file in our hands to do the recording from, it was kept in pristine condition. I mean, It's just amazing to survive time like that. But they did. They kept it in mint condition and gave us everything to work with. So it's such a pleasure.
Well, what you did on this album, and as far as your part in producing this album, I really want to applaud you because you were so tasteful as to what you put on for vocals and added instrumentation. I've heard a lot of recordings that were taken, from an artist years and years ago, and they've added too much, and it still maintains the integrity of the original recording, and I'm so thankful that you did it that way.
Well, that's why I'm glad I got to be sitting in that executive producer chair in the studio part. Tom's the executive producer over the whole project, obviously, but he wasn't in the studio with us. But I was the one that said, whoa, back up. Let's, the whole point of Dad's music is the lyric and that intimacy between him and the listener. And we can't get it too busy now. And nobody wanted to. It's not like there was just one song, and it was the first song, which is Last Day. Kevin, the guitar player, was strumming in the verse, in the first verse. And I said, whoa, hold on, hang on just a minute, Kevin. You're not doing anything wrong, but would you mind trying something for me? Would you mind doing the little rolling guitar thing? And I know this is in the weeds for normal listeners, but instead of playing a rhythm, chunky, guitar sound, just do that little rolling guitar, so it'll open it up and it'll be airy, and that intimate part of the song can breathe and live and come across. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. So we did, and it just made the record magic. And of course,
it did.
John, I had him singing every which way but loose. I mean, he was, especially on Dim Lights. I was saying, all right, bend that note. I wanted him to do everything he could on that song.
Well, it's great. I'll tell you what, it's such a pleasure to listen to this, and I Can't See Me Without You, man. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah.
That one is just such a classic. That was a number 4 in the States, number 1 in Canada, and one of my favorite songs. This is probably in my top 3 favorite Conway Twitty songs. 15 years ago, and this was. This came right on the heels of Hello, Darling. This was the next number 1, right?
Yes. Yes. I'm going to take your word for it. You're better at this than I am. But and the thing about I Can't See Me Without You, one of the really neat, pretty things about this story is for his album cover that was going to come out with that title, Dad wanted to put a picture of us with him on there because he was such a family man, and that was the way he felt. I can't see me without you, talking about his family. And, of course, the label didn't go for it, but he really wanted to do that because he wanted to pay tribute to how much we refueled him to go out and do what he was able to go do. You know, he would come home to get the love and the nourishment to go back out there, because it's a hard life. If anybody's ever traveled on the road a lot, they'll understand what I'm talking about. But that
Amen.
world, it sounds glamorous, but believe me,
There's a lot of work.
Body, oh my gosh, your body gets beat up. And, you know, you think, well, you go to all these neat places, well, you don't get to see anything but the back of a building.
Yeah.
And you go in there and you do your show, and then you're back in that bus or whatever vehicle. I traveled in a car, and Dad did too for many years, but you're back on the road and you're traveling to the next city, and it's a hard life. It really, really is. And I just don't know how he did it for so many years, but he did.
I had Rex Allen Jr. on my show a little while back, and he's retiring from the road after this year, and he says, you know, I went and bought a motorhome. He said, I'm going to go back and see all the places that I've been to. And I thought, what a profound statement, you know.
Oh my gosh. Well, I tell you what, you can barely get me in the car to go to Nashville and back, and I only live for 11 miles. You know, when we were little babies, I'm talking, we were very young, we didn't have a home. Dad was in the rock and roll career. His manager was keeping all the money, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be keeping it safe for Mom and Dad, but little did we know at the time he was really keeping the money. But he would give us just enough to survive on, and we lived in the car. And Mama and Dad made us a little pallet in the back seat. You know, we had a car, a regular car, and they would stack the suitcases in the floorboard and then put a pallet on top. So one of us would sleep in the back window, the other would sleep on the seat, and the third one would sleep on the suitcase. And that's how we lived. I mean, but we were all together, and we thought that was the best life in the world. And I remember, you know, when it was time to eat, we didn't have enough food to go in a restaurant. We didn't have enough money, to go in the restaurant. So Daddy would find a little store, a little gas station that had a deli in it, and Mother would go in and buy just enough slices of bologna with some bread and mustard, and she'd sit up there, and there wasn't any room for her to put her feet in the floorboard either, because there were suitcases. But she'd put her feet up on the dashboard, and she'd sit there and make bologna sandwiches and, you know, hand them one at a time back to us, and then give us each a bottle of Dr. Pepper or whatever.
Wow.
That's how we lived.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we lived. And we thought we had the greatest life ever. And we did. And I wouldn't give anything for that experience. And, you know, thank God it got better and life got a lot easier, especially for my dad, because when we got school age, we got to go home and be at home, you know, eventually. But for many years, there wasn't such a thing as a home. It just home on wheels, and that's all we had.
You know, Joni, a lot of artists in their career are blessed to have a signature song, and your dad was blessed to have two, and arguably more than that. But of course, when he was a major rock and roll star, "It's Only Make Believe" was the signature song. But the song that he will be most forever associated with, and as you mentioned earlier, he came out on stage, and they were the first two words he'd speak when he hit that stage: "Hello, darling."
Yeah, that's right, Scott. You know, he carried that song around in his guitar case for many years. He wrote it when he was young, very young. And one day he was in Bradley's barn recording his next album to be, and they had a little time left at the end of the session, and he said, you know, he asked Mr. Bradley, he said, do you mind if I throw this little song on there? And he said, no. So the musicians gladly obliged, and he stepped up to the microphone, and Dad was singing the words, "Hello, darling," like that. And Mr. Bradley said, wait a minute, Conway, try something for me. He said, what? He said, try speaking those words instead of singing them. And of course, Dad then said, "Hello, darling," and
that was it.
And the whole building said, "Oh my gosh!" They all knew instantly that was magic, and of course, it became his next single, and you know, bumped something right off of that album, and I remember him going out that weekend, and it was the very first weekend of its release. And it really, he didn't know how many people had heard it, but he was playing one of his big towns, where he really had a great response from the crowd. And he walked out there, and you put your newer your newer songs at certain spots of the show because you kind of build your show, and it was early on in the show, and you don't know what the response is going to be at this point.
Yeah.
And he walked out there, and when he got to that point, he said, hello, darling, and he said the place exploded. He said everybody in there, the place was rumbling, that it was so loud with screams and cheers from the crowd. And he said it took his breath away. He said, I had to go back away from the microphone. I was choked up. I had tears coming down my eyes. I had to compose myself to where I could even go forward and sing the song. And he said they finally stopped enough to where I could continue. And he said I got through the song, and he said it was like 11 encores that night.
Yeah.
And he said they just would not let me go to my next song.
Oh,
but it obviously was a huge record, and something that forever will be those two little magic words that lit the fuse of a huge career.
Absolutely.
For Conway Twitty in country music.
Well, what a wonderful thing to have that song on this album, and it's we're going to close with that one. We're going to play 15 years, and I Can't See Me Without You, and then I want to play Hello Darling for you. And folks, please get this album, Conway Twitty Timeless. You've heard it all on our show tonight. You got to have it. It's I'm so proud to own this album, and I want to thank you again, Joni, for getting this out to the fans and the listeners. Your dad would have been proud. And Hello Darling is still the #1 requested song on my station after all these years.
Wonderful, Scott. And thank you so much for helping us celebrate Dad's birthday. And we want to invite everybody to come to our Facebook page, too. We have 2 Facebook pages. We have Conway Twitty Facebook, which is just the normal Facebook. But we also have one where my sister Kathy and I communicate a lot with the fans, and it's called Joni, Joni, and Kathy with a K, Joni and Kathy Twitty's Conway Twitty Connection, and that's our Facebook page. And we would love to have you come and join us. We have so much fun there. We do a lot of live video feeds, and you can see us talking to people, and it can get quite fun sometimes. But please come and join us, and please get your album because I know you'll enjoy it. It's a wonderful piece of work.
Absolutely. We will have all that information on our Facebook page as well for My Kind of Country. And I'm a member of the Joni and Kathy Twitty's Conway Twitty Connection, so get on there. It is a lot of fun. You learn a lot of stuff. And it's so great to be able to communicate with all these great fans. And I'm so glad to get this music out there. And thank you again, Joni, for being on My Kind of Country. It's been an honor.
It's my pleasure, Scott. It's such an honor to be on your show, and thank you so much for your time.
All right. ConwayTwitty.com. The album is called Timeless. Here's a few more for you, including the great Hello Darling, as we continue with our very special tribute to Conway Twitty right here on My Kind of Country. Joni, we had a great time talking about the new album, Conway Twitty Timeless, and but I wanted to ask you just a couple things about your own career. You had a fabulous hit song with your dad called Don't Cry Joni, and you had a great solo album out, and you had a great chart hit with I'm Sorry Charlie. Tell me a little bit about your career.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, actually, Dad, had me, he kind of underhandedly got me to sing Don't Cry Joni with him because I was so bashful back then, never intended on singing because the thought of getting up in front of people just terrified me. I mean, I would do it occasionally on his shows and my dress tail would be shaking so bad you could see it in the light. But anyway, he kind of tricked me into it. He told me he was going to take my voice off, put someone else's voice on, and he didn't take my voice off, and I'm so grateful for that now. But he put it on the B side of his record, and after the DJs played the A side, and it went to #1, which was Touch the Hand, they flipped the record, and Don't Cry Joni became this huge record and played all over the world. And from that being so successful, we were asked to come and perform that year on the CMA Awards show. And I was going to college, and Dad said, you want to do it? And I said, well, I guess, So I left school for a week. I told the teachers, that I had to go home. They had no idea who I was or what I did. And I went home, back to Nashville for a week and went and did the CMA Awards show. And the next week, my dad got a call from MCA Records and said, boy, this thing is so hot, we want to do a solo album on Joanie. And so Dad called me, and he said, would you be interested? And I said, well, I guess. I mean, everything was I guess. I was at that age. But I was just so shy, and I couldn't imagine anybody wanting to hear me sing, And so anyway, I said, okay. So Dad started writing songs, and the first song he wrote was a song about a young girl that was at the age where she was about to get married, and she was telling her dad, I've got this other man in my life now, I'll never stop loving you, but he's a part of my life too, and so it was the way a daddy at that part of his daughter's life would be feeling. It wasn't, happening at that point in my life, but it was how he would imagine he would feel when his daughter said, I'm going to get married,
Yeah.
And so I recorded I'm Sorry, Charlie, and it went to number 6. It was a really successful record. Yeah. And then my next song, I had, I think, 11 singles off of my time in recording for MCA Records, and I had the one album. And obviously there were some things after that weren't on the album, but I got voted the new female vocalist of the year in all the trade magazines, which was a really cool thing. I got a movie offer, which I turned down because I was definitely too shy to do that one. But I just really had a fun run. I mean, it was an exciting time. I got to do things and travel and just experience a whole different part of life that, was so rare for people to say they ever got to experience, and I wouldn't give anything for that time. I finally came to a point in my life. I was about 22, and I was ready to have my own family. I was married, and
sure. And
I said, okay, I don't see me being the kind of person that can blend the two. I don't want to be a mom that calls long distance and says, how are my kids, I'm a hands-on mama. And I said, that's, I've done everything I want to do there, and I'm ready to go be a mom now. So
well, good for you.
I gladly left the business, and I never regretted it. I did, sing around Nashville later when my kids got a little bit older, and I enjoyed that too, but I didn't have to travel to do it. But, with my parents, my dad was gone a lot, after we got to the age where we had to be home for school and stuff. And my mother was everybody's hero because she kept that foundation strong. And we never missed Dad not being there for functions, that everybody else had their mom and dad at, because she played the role for both so well. Right. And Dad, when he was home, he was so 100% present, and we never felt like we missed anything in life. We just were so blessed to have great parents, and they kept us very stable and solid. And, we lived in Oklahoma most of my life growing up, and they kept us out of the glare of the spotlight of, where most Nashville things happen. And we didn't know we were any different. We weren't any different than anybody else. Maybe our dad did something a little unique for his the way he made his living, but and we got to do some really cool things. But as far as the way we felt and acted, we were normal. But anyway, back to your original point. I have a wonderful career, and I enjoyed it, and I just wouldn't give anything for that experience. So I recorded under the name Joni Lee, that's my actual name, Joni and Lee, and of course Jenkins was our real last name. But it was quite a memory for me to hold on to. And
well, I'm glad you dropped in there for a while because you did have some great music. And I want to play Don't Cry, Joni for my listeners, and I want to play I'm Sorry, Charlie, too. This is a great song. Your dad wrote this one, right?
He did. He wrote that, and The Reason Why I'm Here, that's another great one. And, yeah, he wrote some great songs for me. Pretty good, you know, that's a good person to know for a songwriter.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, well, here's a little bit of music from Joni Lee for you. Thank you so much, Joni.